Welcome to episode 2 of In Between Podcast. We are thrilled that you are joining us today. Let's dive right in and get the tea on what's happening in the in-between.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 2 of In Between Podcast, and we are so excited for this new season. Today's episode is how to have better conversations that are God-honoring, and we are about to dive into that right now.
Absolutely. So, God-honoring conversations. One thing that Sarah and I thought is definitely not God-honoring that we were going to talk about today is gossip. And so, gossip creeps into, I think, all of our conversations at some point in time. And it's either other people doing the gossiping and us doing the listening, or it's us personally doing the gossiping about somebody else.
And I think it happens more often than we may think that it does, or it's just so easy because in our culture, I guess you could say, it's just everybody does it. So why is it a bad thing?
Mm-hmm.
And we need to definitely check ourselves and see what we're doing, you know?
Absolutely. And I think too, like you said, everybody kind of does it. So it's like so easy to miss. Especially as Christians, I think we bring up other people's information as like, oh, we need to pray for them, but we share way too many details, and the information is not helpful at all. And we fall more into the side of gossip rather than like God honoring conversations. So, what does the Bible say about gossip? So, we found two Bible verses. More like Sarah found two Bible verses.
Yeah.
Honestly, really step on your toes a little bit and really convict you if you struggle in this area. So, Sarah's going to read this for us.
Yes. Now, we found a lot more than two because there's just a lot in Proverbs that you can go look up if you're really wanting to know more about, gossip and what the Bible says. But we did choose these two because we felt like they were kind of the best from what we're talking about. So, Proverbs 11:12 through 13 says, "Whoever shows contempt for his neighbor lacks sense, but a person with understanding keeps silent. A gossip goes around revealing a secret, but a trustworthy person keeps a confidence." And I think that just really speaks to us when it's a gossip goes around revealing a secret. That's something that us as Christians maybe don't think that it's really a big deal. I'm going to spread their little secret, not to be mean or anything, but just to kind of, to get that, I don't know, it gives you it makes you feel some type of way, I guess.
Well, and I think too, if somebody confides in you, you really need to take that
as far
respectful or them putting a lot of trust in you that they would tell you a certain thing about themselves. And then you're not actually trustworthy if you go around spreading it, you're not being a good friend.
Okay, and the next one is Matthew 12:33 through 37. The title is A Tree in Its Fruit. But it says, "Either make the tree good and its fruit will be good, or make the tree bad and its fruit will be bad. For a tree is known by its fruit. Brood of vipers, how can you speak good things when you are evil? For the mouth speaks from the overflow of the heart. A good person produces good things from his storeroom of good, and an evil person produces evil things from his storeroom of evil. I tell you that on the day of judgment, people will have to account for every careless word they speak. For by your words you will be acquitted, and by your words you will be condemned." And that was we read that verse or that little paragraph 3 times just to kind of get it all in there.
Yeah.
But the part that I really like is, how can you speak good things when you are evil? For the mouth speaks from the overflow of the heart. And I think if we put so many negative things or bad things in our conversation, it kind of fills our heart with bad, and then we are the bad, we become the bad.
Yeah.
So it's important what we put in our hearts and our minds, and trying to make those conversations good and positive rather than negative.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I think like Sarah saying, like protect your heart of like what's going into it. And like if you're always hearing like gossip, well, eventually you're going to start gossiping. So you really have to be conscious and ask God to like help you be aware of like who you're hanging around and like what conversations you're being a part of. But I feel like gossip sometimes isn't defined. Like we said, like it's just such like a social norm that we're like, oh, that's not really gossip. Oh, that I'm not really gossiping. So we got the definition of gossip, and then we're going to kind of like summarize it.
That's okay.
So gossip is a casual or unconstrained conversation or reports about other people, typically involving details that are not confirmed as being true. So it's basically second-handed information that you're going around and spreading about other people. And it's like, I tell Sarah something, and then she goes and tells a bunch of other people. And those people don't even know what Sarah's saying is true or accurate or anything like that. So it's not helpful. It's not helpful to anybody.
As far
So with gossip being more like defined now, hopefully we can identify it a little bit better in our conversations, and hopefully we can really identify it in our own life with like what we're talking about and what we're sharing, because we can't really like check other people and be like, you're bad for gossiping. Like, don't do that. But we can stop conversations, gossip conversations from happening. And so we wrote down just like a few things of like how to actually stop a gossip conversation. One way is to just stop it. You just say like, we don't need to be talking about that. Let's change the subject. Or like, we don't need to be saying that about that person, and walk away. Like you have options. You don't have to sit there and listen to the person saying that about another person.
And then think about what you are sharing. That's like number 2. Definitely like if you, I guess, don't feel confident enough to tell that other person like to stop, you need to go and recheck yourself and think about what you are sharing in the conversation. If you're participating, if you don't feel like it's right for you to even say like, oh yeah, like that's still like
Participating.
or like saying like you're okay with the gossip that's going on. So maybe think about what you're saying, and definitely let's say like redirecting the conversation. I think that takes a lot to do that. It depends on what group you're in. Like if you're comfortable with the people, with the friends or whoever, then I think it's a lot easier said than done. But definitely think about what you are saying and like if you're oversharing, because that would be something that you can you can control that rather than what they are saying.
Yeah.
And then number 3 is what you're saying helpful.
Mm-hmm.
As far as like the gossip that we're saying, or rather conversation, is it helpful to that person? Like if I were to say tell Celeste about my friend or whatever, is what I'm going to tell her helpful to her, or is it like more hurtful?
Or just hurtful to the other person that you're talking about too. Like if they were sitting beside you, would you be saying those words about them? And like sharing about their life. Like if we're having like coffee all together, I'm not gonna be like, oh yeah, Sarah's life is like this, blah 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 blah. I'm not gonna be talking for you, like I should be talking for you. So keep that in your mind. Like if they were sitting right beside me, would I be saying this about them? Like would I be sharing this about their personal life that I know, that like Sarah confided in me to know, and now I'm saying it to some other person. And especially in like the Christian culture, especially in like the Bible Belt, like I feel like in the Southern charm that us ladies have, I mean, you hear it all the time, like, bless their heart, like, I'll be praying for them, bless their heart. And that's kind of like the band-aid of the gossip. Like,
Yeah.
you just got done sharing the tea about everybody in your neighborhood, and
Yeah.
then you end it with, but we need to be praying for them.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
we're just like slapping that band-aid on of like, oh, it's not
It was
really gossip.
okay.
Yeah, it was
It's
okay
okay to
because
talk about.
we're gonna pray about it later.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm gonna put them on my prayer list because you just got done telling me everything that's going wrong in their life that I shouldn't know. And
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of like actually putting it on a prayer list or just slapping the prayer band-aid on it. And I think if you actually want to put it on your pray list or you want somebody else to do that, you don't have to tell details. Leave the
No,
details
yeah.
out. Like you can just say, my friend is going through a hard time.
Pray for them.
She needs clarity. Pray for
Yeah.
clarity.
Mm-hmm.
Pray for peace. Pray for healing. You can use these broad terms to get your point across because when you're praying about a person, God knows what they're dealing with, and you can just say, pray for clarity, pray for peace. You don't have to share all the details of this person's life because it can just go down the line of gossip.
Yeah.
And in the South, we slap that band-aid on it. And
Yeah.
you're probably not going to pray for that person. You're just saying that to make yourself feel better.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I actually really hate that phrasing. I really do. Because you know that they ain't gonna pray for that person. It's just one of those things, kind of makes you, I don't know, it makes me like shiver, like cringe.
Yeah, well, I say that because like God's convicted me of like saying that, and I think like I was just kind of taught that that's what you're supposed to say, especially by older generations of ladies. And so I was just like, oh, that's what you say at the end of a conversation about somebody, and then God was like, no, that's not what you said. Like, because you're actually not praying about them, like you're lying about it. And then you're just saying it to make yourself feel better.
Yeah. I definitely, whenever I do like say, if I say that, like I will be praying for you, like instead of like going about my business after that conversation, I like force myself to pray because I'm like, if I don't do it now, I'm not gonna do it, and that was a lie. So I definitely like if you're gonna say that you're gonna pray for somebody, you better be praying for somebody because that ain't right. But yeah, definitely keep the details to yourself if it gets into the sticky. And like even if like you're in the conversation, your friend's telling the story, don't ask the questions like, what happened? Tell me the details. That's when you need your own heart check and be like, nope, I'm gonna, I'm gonna let that go. Let that gossip go.
Yeah.
And I think that's a hard spot to be in too.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, no, that's a very good point. And I think ultimately we have to in the Bible verse, it's like, make sure that your heart's good because whatever flows from it, like, should be good. And so, like, if you make sure that the gossip, like, you don't want to talk about the gossip, then, like, you don't need to question it either.
Yeah.
Like, you're saying, like, tell me the details. Like,
Yeah.
you don't need the details.
Even though that's kind of what we want, we want to know the gossip.
Yeah.
But it's good to.
I think it's like the drama.
Yeah, it's the drama.
Yeah. There's no thing drama.
Wait, Nelson says, yeah. Nelson says I like the drama because,
That's what drama TVs are for, right?
huh?
I said that's what drama TV shows are for, right?
That's what I watch. That's why he says that.
That's borderline too.
Yeah, I know. It's so bad. It's so bad. Okay. Yeah, we can roll it. Next thing is venting. what is the difference from venting and gossip? And I think that that can be like a touchy, harder subject because you're like, how is that not gossip if you're venting about it? And I think it's who you're venting to is the importance, important thing about it. Because if you're just venting to someone that's like someone you can't trust, but it's someone who you can trust and maybe even a um, mentor to you. Because, like, let's just say it's something that, like, a conversation that I am like struggling with and I need to vent and kind of have like my own why are they doing this, or like I don't know, why am I struggling with this that they're doing, and it's not even really about me, you know? And I think it is a good place to vent if you're in a safe place, in a healthy place with your spouse and your mentor. Um
Yeah. And I want to add too, like, I mean, that first, second Bible verse in Matthew that you read, it was talking about like God's going to hold you accountable for all the words that you say. And so even when you're venting, you need to be very cautious and like aware of like the words you're saying about other people. And even the words that you say about yourself, like you need to be very aware of like, is it God honoring? Like what I'm about to say. And I mean, God says don't sin in your anger too. I think we can be frustrated and we can like let that frustration or anger out. But it's like, are we like condemning somebody, you know? Are we like
yeah.
using like calling them names and stuff like that? And like that's not okay. But like
Yeah.
in the sense of like, I'm really struggling in this area. I need to talk to somebody about it and like vent about a situation. Like, as long as we make sure that it's God honoring, like, that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and even like, is your spouse going to put you in check? You know, is your
Yeah.
mentor going to put you in check? Because if you're just like going off, like going crazy, you know,
Yeah.
are they going to hold you accountable for what you're saying, or even be like, look, that's petty. Like,
Mhm.
you don't need to be worrying about that. And it's like, you're probably right, you know?
Yeah.
Or just like, you should not be that frustrated about that. And
Yeah.
then like kind of have a conversation about it. Like, why are you frustrated about that?
Mhm.
Yeah, that person should put you in check, put you not necessarily in your place, but like kind of give you a different perspective.
Yeah.
And then you realize like I guess what you're venting about and why you're venting. And if you still have like a problem, a heart problem with it, I suggest going and praying about it, or just asking God like why, like I need your help.
Yeah.
Like help me let this not be a problem in my heart, you know? And
Yeah.
like kind of bringing it to light.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I think, bringing it to light and just like having another person to like bounce ideas off of, you know, and like, hey, this happened. I don't know how to deal with it. Like,
Yeah.
this is my reaction to it or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
you ask good advice, you know. Um, so venting is, like we said, like a little different. Just always make sure that what we say is God honoring and like making sure that we're checking our hearts that whatever flows from it is good, you know? And in order to have good in our hearts, we have to have God and His scripture, obviously. So that's another thing that we really need to check in ourselves. Okay, so we've stopped the gossip and we've clarified venting. So how are we changing the conversation? So we thought, and kind of goes into what we were just saying, we really need to change our hearts and our own minds before we can really change the conversation. Because like if we're still stuck in that mindset of some gossip's okay, or I still kind of want to know these details, you know, like we really need to ask God to check ourselves and help us grow into a deeper relationship with Him and to know like what is more God honoring and good.
Right. And kind of like just pass the conversation. Like if something like I really want to know is like kind of, I guess, eat me alive because I'm just like so curious. I don't know. I just feel like pray that God puts you in another headspace
Yeah.
as far as like, that's not okay headspace.
Yeah.
Like we shouldn't want the gossip. We shouldn't want the drama because we want best for everybody, or we should want best for everybody.
Yeah.
And so even if we don't even like that person, if we want to gossip about somebody, we shouldn't want drama for somebody, because no one likes drama in their own life.
No.
So why are we like helping that situation? Why are we like building it up, and creating more drama?
Just adding.
You don't want that word to go back to that person.
No.
Either.
No.
Like we've been gossiping about you,
Yeah. And that's why I said, like, if you can't say what you're about to say to the person next to you, don't say it, because gossip gets around and you don't want people to be like, oh, Celeste said this.
Yeah.
Like, that's not what I want, so I better not say it,
Yeah.
But yeah, changing our own hearts and minds, like Sarah was saying, like, changing our mindset of like, I don't really want to know the details. Like, God help me to have like your mindset when it comes to these situations. But also we said we need to pray for strength in changing the conversation, because it can be pretty intimidating to a friend that you've been in this like relationship with, and it's kind of about gossip, and then all of a sudden God convicts you about it, and you're like, I need to stop this. And it's like, how do I stop it? Like, I don't want to hurt their feelings, like, but also what we're doing is really wrong. Like, it can be very intimidating. Very.
Well, even if you still want to be friends with that group, like, it's not so bad where you're like, I literally can't be in that friend group, but it's like, I still want to be friends with these people, but how can I just, change the conversation and kind of steer it away without offending or without hurting someone's feelings, or even like, I guess you can't control this, but make them not gossip about you in the next group outing that you didn't get invited to,
Yeah. Yeah.
So how can we do that? Or like pray for strength to do that. Pray for courage to be able to just speak out and be like, that's not right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think obviously praying about it. One thing that you just made me think about, but talking about if you're not there, they're talking about you. My mom always told me when it came to gossip, because high school girls gossip a lot. Like, I don't know. It was just like a thing. And so my mom would always tell me, like, obviously gossip's not good. Like, Celeste, don't be a part of it. But also she was like, if you're talking to somebody and you're talking about this person, when you're not there, those people are talking about you. So she was like, don't talk about the other person if you don't talking about you,
Yeah.
And I think just keeping that mindset too of like you can't really trust gossipers, and if you really want to be a God, like centered person, and a person that when people look at you, they see God and the good fruit, you can't partake in gossip, or they're going to be like, no, Celeste is always going to be talking about me too, like you can't be a trustworthy person and stay in that.
Yeah. I mean, if God convicts you about being or gossiping in that friend group, and it's just like something that's just been, I guess, something you can't really control as far as like your gossip, you might need to maybe take a step back from that group and maybe just kind of pray and think like, where are you taking me, God? Like, where's my friends? Like, I need more friends then if you're gonna like separate me from this. I read a post one time and it was, God reduced your circle because he heard conversations you didn't. And that like spoke to me, because I was like, oh my gosh, like, that's awesome, because it's like the bad fruit. They are the bad fruit, and he's just trying to protect you from becoming the bad fruit.
Yeah.
And so he wants you to be good fruit only. So I just thought that was a really good post. Anyways, So we change conversations, pray for strength and courage to change the conversation, and then change our hearts if it's like our problem, I guess.
Yeah. Like we're
And now,
partaking in it.
yeah,
Okay, so we've stopped the gossip and we've like thought about what we're doing and what we're sharing and stuff. And then we're changing it by changing ourselves and like praying for strength of like how to approach people when they're gossiping and then how to get God more into it. And so obviously like as Christians, like God should be a part of our conversations. Like we can talk about like what God's doing in our own lives. We can talk about what God has shown us. We can talk about the sermon on Sunday. Like there's so much that we can like bring God into and like talk about. But just like a few things that we like wrote down was like Bible verses. Like we can bring in like Bible verses on like certain topics of like how the day's going or whatever. Like there's so much
yeah,
good in the Bible verses, like that we can bring out and talk about. Prayer. I think it's always a good thing to be like, hey, what can I actually pray for you about? And actually sit down and pray with that friend, and like
yeah,
not just be like, tell me what's going on with your life. And then be like, okay, well, that sucks. I'll see you next week for coffee. Actually, be like, what can I be praying for you about? What does God put on your heart that you are like struggling with that you need prayer in, and actually sit down with that friend and pray with them.
yeah.
And I think if we really focus on the Bible verses and the prayer, and just like concentrating on like bringing the good into the conversations, really you're going to have a lot of joy in the conversation. And the joy is going to be hard to trump with the negativity of like something else. Like we'll be like, oh, well, I mean, we just got to talk about a Bible verse, but let me tell you about this gossip. It's gonna be harder to say that because you're not in that
Yeah.
life anymore.
Yeah, that's right. I think the joy part is important to even kind of start your days. If you start your days with like being joyful rather than like the negative aspect, I think it's easier to like talk about the joy in your conversations. So like if I start off my day like, I woke up too late, or like I'm just so tired, whatever. Like the negatives, it's easy to go to your coffee date and be like, today has been such a rough day, blah blah blah. But if we start our day with the joy and then go throughout the day with the joy, I'm not saying you have to fake it, but I'm saying like the joy in your conversation is like, this happened today. I saw the little things that were joyful. Or like somebody came up to me like in Walmart the other day, literally everybody, my two kids were in like the front. I got like a double buggy thing. And so many people were just like, oh, they're so cute, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, thank you. I know, it was a good trip to Walmart. I was like, wow. And like, everybody's coming up to us today. It was the weirdest thing. But anyways, that's just one joyful like topic that I just felt like so much joy from because everybody was smiling. Shepherd was like smiling like his biggest smile like to everybody. But bringing up the joy, and if the conversations are negative, try to change them to the joyful conversations. As far as like, my day was pretty great actually, or something like that, or just
Or just even like you're saying, like y'all are at the grocery store and Shepherd was smiling. Like probably everybody noticed that y'all were joyful that day.
yeah,
And, like y'all were like shining. Like God was like that moment, and like people noticed y'all were different. Like you chose God's joy that day.
right,
And people noticed. So if we go into our conversations choosing God's joy and like prepared to change the conversations to Bible verses, it's going to be hard to let the negativity and gossip slip into our conversations. And if we're working on ourselves, like personally in our quiet moments, like it's going to be harder for the bad to slip out because we're filling ourselves with good. We're filling ourselves with God, you know?
Yeah. I'm going to read Matthew 12:33 through 37. If you have your Bible, I suggest go read it and study it and see what God is telling you through these verses. But it says, either make the tree good and its fruit will be good, or make the tree bad and its fruits will be bad. For a tree is known by its fruit. Brood of vipers, how can you speak good things when you are evil? For the mouth speaks from the overflow of the heart. A good person produces good things from his storeroom of good, and an evil person produces evil things from his storeroom of evil. I tell you that on the day of judgment, people will have to account for every careless word they speak. For by your words you will be acquitted, and by your words you will be condemned. And so, from those words, I think that we need to really check our hearts, pray to God, and ask Him to show us if we've been, given into the gossip, gossiping ourselves, gossiping with our friends, and pray for God to show that to you and to convict you and to stop doing it, or to try to stop the conversations from happening that are indeed gossip. And to maybe, if you don't know that it is gossip, to show you that it is.
Yeah, God will definitely convict you in an area that you ask Him to like look at, you know. And God convicted me about gossip just here recently and was like, you don't need to partake in that. Like, Celeste, like, I've called you to better things. And like, there's so many better things that you can be talking about and sharing more about God as like one of His disciples and not partaking in this, you know?
Yeah.
And I really our theme verse of this season is about good fruit, you know? And so gossip is obviously a rotten fruit, you know, that we probably have all had at one point in time in our lives, or possibly still have. And so we can ask God, like, hey, show us this fruit and show us what good fruit we need to replace it with. Like, show me Bible verses, you know, and just like show me your ways, you know, because God's ways are higher than our ways, you know.
I think a good question to ask yourself is, am I bearing good fruit?
Mm-hmm.
And then go from there, as in like asking God that, and maybe even making a list of like your good fruits, you know, or like good conversations versus bad.
God honoring conversations are basically us staying in check of what we're saying and what we're being around, because we can stop conversations or we can stop being around those conversations. And depending on the people and how many people or whatever, you might have to decide. And God might ask you to make a hard choice. But in the end, like that Bible verse said, like, we're going to be judged for the words that we say, you know, and if we're constantly around bad words and like gossip, like eventually it's going to come out of us, you know. And so like we want to make sure that we're judged for doing good, you know, and not partaking constantly in this bad, especially after being convicted about it. So we talked about how to stop the conversations, how to change it, and how to get God into it. And most importantly, ask God what you need to do and how you need to change the conversations around you. Thanks for listening to this week's episode about how to change your conversations from gossip to God honoring. Don't miss next week's episode, Monday at 4 p.m. for another great topic. We'll see you then.
Thank you for tuning in to In Between Podcast. Join us every Monday at 4 p.m. for more great topics that will inspire your day-to-day life. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and share this podcast with someone who might need it. We'll see you next week.